Whenever you see Anthony Albanese at a press conference, you'll see three flags: the Australian flag, the Aboriginal flag, and the Torres Strait Islander flag. However, now Peter Dutton has indicated that if he were to become the Prime Minister, you would only have one flag, the Australian flag. He would do away with the Aboriginal flag and the Torres Strait Islander flag. He declared this in a statement he gave with Peter Credlin on Sky News. Let's take a listen.
We are a country united under one flag, and if we're asking people to identify with different flags, no other country does that, and we are dividing our country unnecessarily. Now, we should have respect for the Indigenous flag and the Torres Strait Islander flag, but they are not our national flags.
Now, Peter Dutton also doubled down on this when he talked with Ben Fordham, and here's what he had to say there.
Peter Dutton, good morning.
Good morning, Ben.
So you've decided there'll only be one flag if you're Prime Minister?
That's right, and I think we can only be united as a country if we're standing under one flag. I think if we divide ourselves into different groupings, it's very hard to see how you unite the country. And I think at the moment our country is divided. The country was divided over the voice, and I think to bring our country together and to make sure that we can live up to our values and live them as well, standing under one flag to me says that is a united country, and I don't think there's any other country in the world comparable to ours that I can think of that divide their people into separate flags. And we should have respect for the other flags, for the Indigenous flag and the Torres Strait Islander flag, but we have one national flag.
There have been occasions where we've had the Prime Minister speaking and we've had an international dignitary here as well, and in the background of the shot, depending on where the cameraman is standing or the photographer, you can't even see the Australian flag.
Well, that's right, and there's just no other country, no other world leader who does that. We should be very proud of our flag and the history that it represents. I think we should also be talking a lot more about our amazing migrant story, which we don't talk enough about, the post-Second World War migration period, people who came here with nothing but a suitcase with a shirt and pants in it and nothing else, like literally nothing else. And they have worked hard and they've created or contributed to and helped create an amazing country. We live in the best country in the world, and I think we should be expressing that more freely. And in the run-up to Australia Day as well as Anzac Day, other days of national significance, we need to have more pride in our country about who we are and our great Australian story.
I know already that there'll be people contacting me saying, hang on, there are images of Peter Dutton standing in front of three flags. They would be at Commonwealth offices, I'm guessing, as opposed to in the Liberal Party room where you always have the Australian flags. Yeah,
that's right. Look, I mean, some rooms are set up, the government rooms that we use in Parliament House, but nonetheless, as I've been very clear, if I'm elected as Prime Minister, then that will change, and it's not a sign of disrespect. Quite the opposite. I think we've cheapened the story of our reconciliation, and I think we've commercialised elements of that, which is unhelpful. I want to see practical reconciliation and recognition of Indigenous Australians. I want to see kids going to school and graduating and getting into a trade or going to university. I want to see a proper functioning health system and law and order a key function in Alice Springs and elsewhere, which we would expect in Sydney or any other capital city. So there's a lot of work to do, but I think public servants in Canberra thinking that they're ticking boxes through the three flags flying and somehow that's going to make lives better for young kids in Alice Springs, it's a nonsense, and we need to have an honest conversation about that, and that's well and truly my view, and I think it's the view of many Australians.
So in essence, we can see a significant move away from these three flags. Now, to be clear, as was discussed with Ben Fordham, well, Scott Morrison only had the Australian flag when he was doing his press conferences. So we're really going back to what it was before Anthony Albanese. Now, in terms of whether this is good, bad, or otherwise, I'm not per se concerned about the Aboriginal flag or the Torres Strait Islander flag. Rather, it is what it symbolises and therefore what it leads to. That is, Anthony Albanese is symbolising that there will be greater concessions to things such as the voice, such as treaty, which would involve reparations. We can see that whenever we are taking a step, we have to take more and more steps. You give an inch, people take a mile. as I've said in prior videos, appeasement doesn't work. So as soon as you start doing one thing, you become expected to do more and more and more things. So we've seen this, for example, like I said, with the voice referendum, which Australians overwhelmingly rejected. Now, the three flags aren't inherently related to the voice referendum. However, they lead to more steps. It's about setting a precedent. It's about opening the floodgates, so to speak. Now, people often like to try to decry floodgates arguments, but they do actually hold true. Whenever you start taking a step, unless you have a clear limiting principle, more and more steps start to occur. So what is the clear limiting principle Anthony Albanese has? It's not clear. When he goes down the path of, say, the voice, well, what stops him from having a Makarrata Commission, as an example? Now, the flags are not per se part of the voice, but they lead to a precedent that leads to more things. Now, I've seen this in other areas. For example, various parts of public land now being off limits to all Australians. Now, this, to my mind, is a bit of an issue because taxpayer money is going to the maintenance of some of these areas, for example, park rangers and the like. So therefore, I do wonder why it is the taxpayers are funding some of the activities in these areas, but are not actually able to access them unless there is a good reason, like endangered species or the like, that might need some protection until they're able to recover. It is a bit of an issue because the people who are paying the money are the ones who are actually losing out, which is endemic with a lot of what Anthony Albanese and the ALP actually do. The people who pay the money aren't the ones who are getting the benefit. So we've seen the issue with some of the public lands, we've seen the issue with the myriad concessions that continually get rolled out. The flags are also symptomatic of things such as acknowledgements to country or welcomes to country, things that I will steadfastly refuse to do as long as humanly possible. And the thing is that when people are characterizing what Peter Dutton is saying, they're saying, oh, why are you just worried about a flag? Well, it's not the flag. It's what the flag symbolizes and leads to that is the problem. It's not just that it symbolizes that Australia has a history that has Indigenous Australians, rather, it is that it is symbolizing Australia will need to have different rules for different sets of individuals. It is symbolizing a degree of division itself. Peter Dutton also rightly noted that if Australia is going to have an Indigenous flag, then where exactly does this stop? After all, Australia's constitution and its parliamentary system was derived from the British flag. So do we have a separate British flag? Or part of it came from the US system because it is a Westminster parliamentary system. So do we have a US flag there as well? What about all of the people who immigrated to Australia who added invaluable contributions to Australia? Do we have the flags for all of those myriad other countries? By parity of logic, we actually should. And indeed, that might in fact be a better precedent. Nevertheless, Peter Dutton does make a good point. I can absolutely understand why he's going back toward just having the Australian flag. Not because he wants to sweep away Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islanders, but rather because of the next steps that have inherently flowed from them. And it's about sending a signal, drawing a line in the sand. But let me know your thoughts about Peter Dutton's decision in the comments below. I'd be interested to hear what you think.